Lead the ball. Come on now. Come on, Tony. Let's go. Come on now. Come on. Come on. Come on, baby. Let's go. Come on. Come on, Dougie, babe. Dick. Come on, Reeves. Come on, Dick, boy. Let's keep it going. Come on now. We need this, Jeet. Let's go.
It was a year of disappointment for the Bears, 1973, a team young in years and short on National Football League experience. Of 50 players on and off the active roster at various times, 13 were rookies, 11 were second-year NFL campaigners. But the beginnings were bright for this second squad assembled by Abe Gibran, a preseason record that was the Bears' best in 5 years, 3 wins, 2 ties, 1 loss. 3 weeks into the regular schedule, and still no cause for alarm. The Bears lost to Dallas and to Minnesota, but not by too much, as they showed they could give and take with a couple of the best without collapsing. The third week at Denver, they came off with a ridiculously easy win over the improved Broncos, and the future seemed bright indeed. On the fourth Sunday, everything came apart. The game at New Orleans they were supposed to win but didn't. Whatever happened to this young Bears squad? It was never the same again. The early promise shriveled. There was no recovery, and in only 2 games thereafter did the Bears show any of the ferocity that had inspired optimism. But the Bears brought enthusiasm to Soldier Field for that opener against Dallas. They were ready for the veteran Cowboys after the weeks of training camp and the good preseason results. They scored first, but in the second quarter they made costly mistakes. 5 turnovers allowed. The opportunistic Cowboys soared to a 17-3 lead at halftime. Yet, statistically, the teams were even. The Bears presented a resolute defense at the start of the second half to make up for some inconsistency on offense. So, slowed down by the fired-up Bear defense, the Cowboys were forced to punt. And Ike Hill gathered it in, and with a wall of Bear blockers and escort, he ran it back 59 yards. That run back gave new life to the Bears. And on the next series, the climax was Carl Garrett's 15-yard sprint that tied it up at 17-all. So it went on into the fourth quarter. 4 minutes to go. 4th and 1 at their 29. And the Bears elected to fake and keep possession rather than remain temporarily in the tie. It did not work. And shortly after, Dallas got the field goal for its close victory. The following Sunday, while sails billowed over Lake Michigan, the Minnesota Vikings warmed up for what was to be a brawling contest. This team that ultimately went to the Super Bowl got an early season shock in Chicago. And shocked even more than the rest was Fran Tarkenton, thrown for an astonishing 7 losses all afternoon, with number 68 Jim Osborne getting 4 of those sacks. An aggressive Chicago offense opened up early, led by number 26, Carl Garrett. The Bears concentrated on the run and advanced well against the heralded Minnesota defense. This 27-yard slashing effort by Garrett set up the first Bears touchdown. And as the second quarter began, the combination of hustling offense and bristling defense was checking the Vikes. Then along came the rookie, Chuck Foreman, still unproven. But before the day was over, he had flashed many of the moves that were to bring him Offensive Rookie of the Year honors. That excellent first-year man rescued an otherwise stymied Minnesota team by getting the Vikings into scoring range enough times for Fred Cox to blast 5 chip shots from placement. And that was the cushion for Minnesota, 22-13. With the snow-covered Continental Divide as a backdrop, the Bears next went out to Denver, where the Broncos were being hailed as the NFL's most explosive of all on offense. The Broncos, like the Bears, were youthful, and they had shown themselves to be a physical outfit as well. But what had been forecast as a stern test for Chicago developed into a rout. A thundering offense, executing mainly along the ground, was almost unstoppable. Jim Harrison, number 35, had one of his best days as a pro, 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. But the defense was even more successful as a unit. For one thing, Denver quarterback Charlie Johnson had not been sacked all year, but the Bears dropped him 4 times. And in addition, the entire ground game, led by number 44, Floyd Little, got only a sputtering 71 yards in all. It was brutal punishment for the ambitious Broncos. The Bears on offense had everything, 325 yards total, rushing and passing, and they had 30 points on the scoreboard before the dazed Denver Broncos could even show any profit. The final, 33-14, the Bears. The Chicago victory over Denver was one of the Bears' few happy afternoons as a downward skid began. Hopes for a winning season disintegrated in a mingling of sweat and frustration. Although there were scattered instances well worth recalling. For example, consider the day the Houston Oilers were thoroughly mauled to the delight of the Bears loyalists. The game was only minutes old, and the Oilers back on their one after a long punt by Bobby Joe Green when the first score came. Second-year man Bob Pifferini, number 58, jarred the snap from center, and Dick Butkus, reliable 51, pounced on the loose ball in the end zone for the first touchdown of his NFL career. Dick's fiery play keyed the defense that day, just as it had from the opening game of the season. Despite the aggravation of a bad knee, he provided consistent leadership through the first 10 games. Against Houston, number 51 and the entire Chicago defense dismantled the Oilers' offensive attempts with the visiting quarterback's special prey as they were reached for losses 5 times. As for the Bears offense, well, here's a starter with Douglas handing off to Garrett, who drove in for the score. A bit later, Bobby used the option to entice Houston's defense just enough so he could loft a touchdown pitch to George Farmer. Then the kickoff that began the second half was caught by Ike Hill on the 5. And with a protective cordon of blockers, he ran it back 95 yards for a touchdown. Third longest return of the year in the NFC. The Chicago Blitz was concluded with first-year quarterback Gary Huff, number 19, on display. He responded with a 60-yard offensive movement whose climax was a well-executed flip to Earl Thomas for 6 more points. The ever-loyal Bear fans were all smiles after witnessing the Bears demolish the Houston Oilers 35-14. A week later came the renewal of pro football's oldest rivalry at Green Bay. The Packers built a lead 17-10 at intermission. But then, the Green Bay offense wilted under Chicago pressure. 4 times, Packer quarterbacks were dropped to climax defensive rushes so thorough that for the entire day, Green Bay's total passing attack registered a minus 12 yards. In the second half, the Packers witnessed a blur of Bear offense with number 17, Ike Hill, returning a punt 72 yards. Bobby Douglas set a torrid offensive pace that brought in the victory. His 100 yards rushing were highlighted by this 54-yard solo excursion. By all odds, this was one of Bobby's most impressive performances as a pro. He scored all 4 touchdowns, and besides his rushing total, he completed 10 passes for 118 yards. Most important, the Bears successfully challenged and defeated their arch rivals in their Green Bay home, 31-17. Then the 10th week of the season, and the Bears were home against the Detroit Lions, hopeful of improving their position in the standings. There was this great return of a kickoff by Carl Garrett to give encouragement. The Lions led early 7-0, but the Bears responded on a smooth downfield movement. The 7th play was a Douglas scramble to the Detroit 2. From there, Garrett drove off right tackle to tie it up. The Bears obviously were ready for more at this stage of the game, but in the second quarter, Douglas took off on a run that ended in an injury to his knee. Bobby was through for the day and got into only parts of 2 of the final 4 games of 1973. The quarterbacking was taken over by first-year man Gary Huff, who continued the drive to Detroit's 9, but there it ended in disaster as Lions safety man Dick Geron, also a rookie, picked off Huff's pass and returned 95 yards for a touchdown. It broke the game wide open, and the Lions went on to win 30-7. With all of the disappointments, the Bears still had many individuals to remember. Douglas, for example, contributed raw, rugged excitement whenever he would tuck the ball away and challenge enemy defenses. At 6'4" and 225 pounds, Bobby has consummate athletic talent. He uses that ability effectively. Over 500 yards on the ground, an amazing 2,200 plus for his career. Whatever the situation, the Bears quarterback went all out every time. Or consider the excitement generated by number 26, Carl Garrett, acquired in one of the best trades the Bears have made in years. He contributed more than 1,200 yards total offense as the team's leading receiver and rusher. He had artful moves and burning desire as one of the league's best runners. But the offensive back on display gets places because of the men who block for him. Virtually anonymous men, but invaluable men. Bears offensive linemen have always been tough and bruising. The 1973 contingent had guys like Glenn Holloway, Bob Asher, number 74, Rich Cody, number 52. Beneath the scenes, the interior linemen waged their hidden battles with personal achievement and pride as their rewards. Obviously, the defensive unit had many moments of high efficiency. In fact, they were second in pass defense in the NFC. And typically in the Bears tradition, anything could and often did happen. A stalwart was number 68, Jim Osborne. He led the team in quarterback sacks. In all, the unit was responsible for a total of 32. Late in the season, filling in for Dick Butkus was rookie linebacker Don Reeves, number 57. Despite lack of size and experience, he gave an encouraging measure of hard-nosed toughness. There also was the steadying influence of number 55, veteran Doug Buffone, 8 years in the NFL and too often overlooked as the complete linebacker. While Buffon had his usual great season, including 3 interceptions, safety Gary Lyle, number 44, led in interceptions with 5, up with the league's leaders. But the season's greatest find was All-NFL rookie defensive player, tackle Wally Chambers, number 60. He stepped in as a regular from the outset, and for 14 straight weeks, he impressed all who saw him. Pursuit and punishment were the marks of his play as he ranged wide and recklessly, a 6'6", 260-pound terror. No losing season is palatable, and for the Bears it is terribly distasteful. 1973 was disappointing, yet there was excitement and frequent displays of excellence along the way. These youthful Bears, a little shy on NFL experience, learned and matured.